The book is called Raise Your Game. The author, Alan Stein Jr., basketball performance expert. He's worked with some of the very best in the business, some of the best organizations, Nike, the LeBron James camps, and some incredible stories of firsthand experiences of what it takes to really raise your game both on and off the court in business, basketball, and life. Alan, thanks so much for being part of Leaders and Legends.
Absolutely, my pleasure. I'm so thankful to have been able to see behind the curtain with a lot of different legends, both in business and in basketball. And they're all things that I can learn from. And now that's the reason I wrote the book, was to share them with others.
And one of your absolute best stories, and I dare say it's a signature story, is the time you went out for a personal workout, a personal training session with one of the greatest NBA stars in history. He was at the time best basketball player in the world, Kobe Bryant, but there was a twist to that story, Alan.
Yeah. Well, so I got a chance to work his first ever Kobe Bryant Skills Academy, and having been a lifelong basketball fan, I'd heard the urban legend of how insanely intense his individual workouts were. Well, as a strength and conditioning and performance coach, I wanted to see one. So I asked him if I could watch one, and he was incredibly gracious and said, "Sure, man, I'm going tomorrow at 4. And I was really confused because our first workout with the kids was the next day at 3:30, and he quickly clarified that with a wink and said, "Yeah, that's 4 a.m.
4 a.m.
Yeah. Well, as you know, there's not a legitimate excuse on why you can't be somewhere at 4 in the morning, so I'd basically committed myself to being there, and I figured if I was going to be there anyway, I might as well try and impress him. You know, I wanted to show him how serious of a trainer I was, so I came up with the plan to beat him to the gym.
Okay.
So I set my alarm for 3 a.m. and quickly jumped up, got myself together, hopped in a taxi and went to the gym. And to no surprise, when I get out of the cab, Kobe's already there. I can already see the gym light on.
Right.
I can already hear a ball bouncing and sneakers squeaking. And I walk in the side door, Kobe's already in a full sweat at 3:30 in the morning. He was going through an intense warm-up before his workout with his trainer started at 4.
And what's interesting for this story is at the time, this is what, 2000?
This is 2007.
2000, like he is at that time, Michael Jordan had already retired.
Yep.
LeBron was still just kind of on the way up.
Yep.
Kobe's like the best in the world.
Best player in the world, undisputed, without question. And there he is in the off season in a gym at 3:30 in the morning. And what blew me away was how basic the offensive moves and footwork drills he was doing. He was doing stuff that I, as a coach, had done with middle school age players. Now, of course, this is Kobe Bryant, so he's doing everything with, unparalleled intensity, and he's doing everything with razor sharp precision. But the stuff he was doing was incredibly basic, which surprised me. I expected to go into that gym that morning and see a lot of flash, see a lot of sizzle, see a lot of sexiness. Absolutely, that's what I expected. And then I come to find out from him that the reason he's the best in the world is because the best never get bored with the basics, and that he has such a strong appreciation and respect for the fundamentals and the basics that he never leaves them. That they're always going to be the foundation to everything that he does. And that had a very life-changing effect on me as a coach, to know that if the best player in the world is always going to stay in tune with the basics, then I need to do the same thing with whatever my craft is.
The best never get bored with the basics. And I think that is such a universal theme.
Absolutely.
You can take everywhere. I know you do that in your consulting, in your coaching, in your speaking profession. But I know as well, Alan, there's some other stories, like, for instance, the story of how the best never get bored with the basics would translate to your encounter with Gary Vaynerchuk.
Yes.
Gary V would be one of, the most powerful internet personalities on the planet, and yet, if I understand correctly, you saw the same pattern in his office.
Absolutely. I had a mutual friend connect me to Gary's personal assistant and reached out, and I wanted to interview him for my podcast, because even though I was having a basketball-specific podcast, I knew that what Gary could teach coaches is the same way that coaches can teach folks in the business world. These things are very reciprocal. So I wanted to turn the basketball audience on to the brilliance of Gary V, and I had a chance to sit down with him, and I was told months in advance, you will have 30 minutes. Like, the moment he walks in the room, the clock will start, and in 30 minutes he's leaving. How you want to use that time is up to you. And of course, I wanted to maximize that time. This was a hero of mine. This was someone I really looked up to. And I just remember he was incredibly patient, and he was incredibly present, and he had just amazing body language. He was as into the conversation as you and I are right now.
Make a lot of parallels from business and sports, and I do think hustle is actually one of the two core ingredients.
Yeah.
It's hard work and hustle / talent. That's the formula, always and forever.
I didn't expect any less, but it was really reassuring to see this guy who has internet fame to be so grounded and so present and give full attention and give thoughtful answers. I was blown away. I mean, I was mesmerized. And again, very similar, he understands that those are the basic building blocks of connecting with other human beings. You make eye contact, you have good body language, you're an active listener, you share thoughtful, meaningful responses. There was nothing about that 30 minutes that made me think he was mailing it in, that he was waiting for his next appointment. I felt that I was the most important person in his life for 30 minutes. And that's what makes a Gary Vee so special, is that basic component, that wherever you're gonna be there. You know, I have a line that I like to use. I've heard it from Nick Saban and from Oprah, two pretty accomplished people, and that's be where your feet are. So wherever your feet are, make sure your head and your heart are there as well. And Gary Vee's head, heart, and feet were in his office that morning for 30 minutes, and he gave me his undivided attention, and it's something I'll never forget and something I'm incredibly thankful for. But that's a basic.
And the thought just occurred to me as I'm listening to you now. What role does perspective play in all of this? I love the idea of be where your feet are, because that's where head and heart are.
Yeah.
But where does perspective play a role in this?
Well, but as basic as that concept is, being where your feet are is getting increasingly difficult because of all of the digital distractions.
Right.
I mean, think how many times you're with somebody, but you're not really with somebody because you're focused on something else. And I think that's a basic component to building relationships and a basic component to building trust. And perspective, everything in the world is perspective. You and I may have a difference of perspective on certain issues, of certain ways of doing things, but there's also some things that are commonalities amongst all of us. And when you give someone your attention, which is the number one currency any of us as human beings have, you're telling someone that I care about you. You're important to me. I'm going to give you the most valuable asset I have. That's my time. And that is my way of showing that you are important to me. And I think if we do that more with folks, we'll have much stronger, more connected relationships. And if you want to be an effective leader, it comes down to relationships. Can you forge strong, connected relationships and have people trust you because they know you care about them? Kobe can do that. Gary Vee can do that. You show me any successful leader and I'll show you folks that understand the basics of connecting with other human beings.
And just as I listen to you here, Alan, I think right away, whether it's Kobe Bryant, Gary Vaynerchuk, on or off the court, business, basketball, doesn't matter. What role, and now I'm really curious about your opinion on this, what role do heroes play? How significant is the role of having heroes in order to, be the best leader you can be?
I think we should all have people that we look up to, that we respect, that we consider mentors, even if you haven't met them. That's the nice part about digital. You can have a digital mentor, but I think it's also important to realize that you need to be your true, authentic self. So you don't need to try to emulate someone else. Kobe will tell you he learned a lot from watching Michael Jordan play, but he never tried to be Michael Jordan. I'm sure Gary Vee learned things from other business titans and people that could do things, but he's never tried to be them. Both of those guys are so genuine and authentic to who they are, and that's the key. And for me, I could give you a long list of people that I've looked up to and almost idolized and learned from, but I don't try to be any of those people. Those people are already taken. That's who they are. Coach K at Duke is a perfect example. As a young coach, that was the guy that I put on the highest pedestal. But I could never be Coach K. But you know what? He can't be Alan Stein Jr. I have to take some pride in that.
Exactly.
So I could learn from him. I could take some of his habits and his best practices to make myself better, but I still have to be the best me I can be. And I know that's kind of corny and cliche, but it's so true.
But further to that point, I know you tell a wonderful story about Coach K. Duke University, the Blue Devils, perennial NCAA powerhouse, and there's this story about this school that nobody's heard of, Butler. No one gets intimidated by Butler.
Right.
But something that you stumbled onto has profound meaning.
This was a couple years before Butler made the national championship, before people did become aware of who they were. This was before they were at that level. and a very good friend and a mentor of mine, Jay Billis with ESPN. And this is another guy that I hold on such high regard, but I don't try to be Jay Billis. I try to learn from Jay Billis, and I respect and I love Jay Billis, but I try to take things from him to be the best me I can be. Well, before Duke was going to play Butler in the Meadowlands in New Jersey, Jay, as part of his ESPN coverage, went to watch both practices. And Jay's actually a Duke grad, so he went to Duke's practice first, and he knows Coach K because he played for him. Right. And he went and watched Duke's practice. And Coach K was talking about, we're going to crush Butler because we're bigger than them. We're gonna out-rebound them. We're gonna pound the ball inside. We're gonna get easy layups and dunks because we're bigger. And Jay said he left, and he's thinking, man, this is gonna be a bloodbath tonight because Duke's clearly got the advantage because they're bigger. Well, then he goes over to Butler, where Brad Stevens, who's one of the best coaches in the game, is holding practice. And Brad is saying the exact opposite. He said, we're gonna shock the world tonight and beat Duke because we're smaller and we're quicker. We're gonna crush these guys because we're faster than they are. And Jay left going, I don't know what's gonna happen tonight. Both teams think they have the advantage. Both teams think they're playing to their strength tonight. And it ended up being an incredibly close game. Duke won at the end, but it was much closer than people thought. And that's because each team knew who they were, knew what their strengths were, and they did what they could do best. And that's my favorite part. They didn't try to be someone else. They didn't try to play the other team's game plan. They tried to do what they knew they could do best. And they may have come up a couple points short, but I think that shows that there's a lot of strength in being who you are and playing to your own strengths.
Having heroes, perspective, never getting bored with the basics, and being absolutely true to yourself. Just some of the fundamentals from Alan Stein Jr., the author of Raise Your Game. Thanks so much for doing this.
Always my pleasure. Thanks, Garrett.